Hi friends, welcome back to our little cottage here on the river in the far north of Idaho. So if you've been following along, then you might know that we just got back from our big vacation, big road trip down to Colorado for a little family reunion on my side of the family. And we really extended that vacation and filled it up with all sorts of sites that we had not seen before, and of course, spending time with family. But anyway, we are home now, and the last two videos over the last 2 weeks that you may have seen were a little bit shorter. They were shorter recipe videos, and I had prepared them before we went on vacation because I wanted to make sure to still get videos out each week that we were on vacation. So they, like I said, they're a little bit shorter. One was the recipe video for my really easy sourdough discard crackers, probably the easiest cracker you would ever make. And then the other one is for my basic all-purpose pickling brine that is great for all sorts of vegetables. And it's a fun recipe because you can change up the ingredients that you put into it to change up the flavor depending on what you're pickling. And it's also great to keep a jar of it in your fridge, and you can literally just throw in chopped up veggies that are in your fridge that you know are going to go bad before you use them up, and make a fun pickle out of just all sorts of different veggies from your fridge. So anyway, you can go check those videos out, and if you haven't already. So this video is going to be another shorter recipe video. I recorded this while we were in Colorado. So the kitchen you're going to see me in is actually our Airbnb kitchen. So a little bit different than my kitchen here at home. And yeah, so after this video, I'm hoping to kind of get back into a little bit longer videos. I want to share more of my garden, how my garden's doing. We also have a lot of home improvement projects that now that our big vacation is behind us. Can you hear that squirrel? That squirrel, man, he's out on the back deck and just barking up a storm. Anyways, now he stopped. Anyway, but yes, we have a lot of home improvement projects now that our big vacation is behind us that we can really focus on and get going on. I have some painting to do in the living room. We're also going to put up some shelves in the living room that are actually attached to the wall. And once I get the painting done, I'm also going to be working on a gallery wall. I also have some sewing projects that I am going to share with you guys. So yeah, just a lot to do, a lot to share. And so anyway, this, like I said, this will be the last shorter little recipe video before I get into more of my longer videos coming up. So this video, I am sharing with you I guess I would consider it a family recipe. I don't even know if it's a family recipe. My grandma made this cake. I don't even know when she started making it, but I don't know where she got the recipe from. And this is one of those things where she passed away about 8 years ago now. And this is one of those things where I wish I could ask her, where did you get this recipe? Because I am struggling to even find an official name for it. And so I decided to create an official name. And so in my family, this cake is Grandma's Butterfinger Bliss Cake. And it's also one of my aunt's favorite birthday cakes. And she wanted my grandma to make this for her every single year. But anyway, it is a chocolate cake with a layer of pistachio pudding on top, then a layer of Cool Whip or whipped cream, and then crushed up Butterfingers sprinkled over the top. And it is one of those recipes that I think if people have never seen it before or tried it before, they think, what? Like you're putting pistachio pudding on a chocolate cake, and then you're topping all of that with crushed Butterfingers. And it can seem kind of weird, but it's one of those things where once you taste it, you're like, whoa, that really works. So yeah, like I said, it's one of my family's favorite cakes. And so we had a big potluck dinner. One of the dinners we had for our family reunion was a big potluck, and everyone contributed. And my contribution was this Butterfinger Bliss Cake. And everyone was very excited to have this cake again. So one of the things is I have made this cake before with making chocolate cake from scratch and then doing homemade whipped cream. So you can absolutely do that. That's actually how I prefer to make this cake. But because we were on vacation and we were in Airbnb, and because I wanted to make it exactly the same way that my grandma would have made it, I used box cake mix and I used Cool Whip. So that is the official recipe that my grandma would have used. So typically I would not use box cake, but hey, if you do not have a chocolate cake from scratch recipe that you want to use, or you don't have the time, just use the box cake. When you're eating a delicious cake like this, you're not going for nutrition, you're going for joy. So don't worry about what kind of chocolate cake you use. So so without much further ado, let's get into the cake recipe. So I will have the full recipe linked in the description box below. It'll be over on my blog, homespunannie.com. And and if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please head over and hit that subscribe button. And let's get into Grandma's Butterfinger Bliss Cake. Okay, so in this video, you are going to see me making a double batch of this cake because we had a lot of people for this potluck dinner for our family reunion. So I made a double batch, but the recipe over on my blog is for one 9x13 cake. And I highly recommend doing this as a sheet cake just because you have the pudding and the Cool Whip on top. So you kind of need things to be contained a little bit more. You could try to do this as a round cake with a couple layers, but I honestly don't think it will work as well because I think the pudding and the Cool Whip would be way too soft. So I highly recommend making this as a sheet cake in a 9x13 pan. Now, here I am using box chocolate cake, as I mentioned before. You can absolutely use your favorite from scratch chocolate cake recipe. I have done that plenty of times, but I just wanted to show you the exact way that my grandma would have made this cake. So while I was preparing the batter, I was preheating the oven, I believe to 350 degrees. Don't quote me on that. It was based on the box. So, and then here you see me using these disposable tin pans because once again, we were not at home. We were in an Airbnb, and the tins just made it that much easier to transport the cake from the Airbnb to where we were having dinner. And the wonderful thing about these tin pans that you can find at really almost any grocery store in their like baking section, these had plastic lids, like domed plastic lids, which was wonderful because these needed to go into the fridge and be kept in the fridge until we went to dinner. And then when we got to dinner, we put them in the fridge there. So while this cake can be served immediately after you've topped it, now the cake does have to cool completely before you top it with the pudding and the Cool Whip, but you can serve it immediately after you've topped it. But I find that giving it time to really cool down and rest in the fridge for at least 1 to 2 hours before serving, I don't know, it's a little bit better. And I think it's just flavors have time to develop, I guess you could say. And it just allows the pudding and the Cool Whip and the cake to come to the exact same temperature, which I think just makes it, I don't know, just makes it nice. So, and of course I'm using instant pistachio pudding. I have made homemade pudding before. I have no clue how to make pistachio homemade pudding. I am sure that there are recipes out there for it, but this is one thing where even if I really want to make this cake fully from scratch, I'm just going to buy the box of pistachio pudding, and this is the instant pudding, so you only have to whisk this up for a couple minutes and then you pop it in the fridge. It's already starting to set up, and then within 5 minutes it's already set. I do like to leave it in longer than 5 minutes in the fridge before I top the cake with it, so I'll prepare it while the cake is baking and put it in the fridge. That way it just gets really, really nice and thick. And then here I am preparing the Butterfingers. So for 2 cakes, I think I had, how many did I have there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think I bought 8 Butterfinger bars. And I started out with just crushing 6 of them, and then I realized I wanted more just to make sure that I was going to cover both cakes completely with the Butterfingers. I did have I think half a cup or so left over that I didn't use. So for 1 cake, I would say 3 or 4 Butterfingers is plenty. I would go with 4 just because you want to make sure that you really get a nice thick layer of Butterfingers on the top of this cake. It's just one of those things that, don't scrimp on the Butterfingers. So here, they didn't have a rolling pin at the Airbnb, so I just used a spoon, and I just kind of went at it. I crushed it with my hand, kind of, and then pressing it with the spoon, and then I even just whacked it with the spoon. So just crush it up, whichever method you have to crush them up. You could even use a tin can. But anyway, so here this is where I decided, well, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and throw in those last 2 Butterfingers and use them up as well. And then once the cake is baked and cooled completely, you really want to make sure this is cooled completely because you don't want your pudding to melt or the Cool Whip or anything like that. So you're just going to put a nice thick layer of pistachio pudding on top of the cake. I didn't measure the exact amount I used. I had used, I think, 3 boxes for the 2 cakes, and I think I ended up, I had bought, no, what did I do? I used 2 boxes for the 2 cakes, and I had bought 3 boxes, and I ended up making the 3rd box because the 2 boxes for the 2 cakes wasn't quite enough. I hope that made sense. So anyway, I think for 1 cake, you're going to want to have the 2 boxes. You may have a little bit extra pudding left over, but that's not a bad thing. So 2 boxes for 1 cake, and I just get it on there nice and thick. I really don't know the exact amount I used. It's probably a good 1 to 2 inches thick on there, and you're just going to get that spread evenly over the top of your cake. And then comes the Cool Whip. And again, I bought 4 little tubs of Cool Whip. Did not need all 4. I only used about 2.5. So for 1 cake, I would go ahead and buy 2 little tubs, and then, you might have a little bit left over, but it's one of those things where you would rather have too much than too little. And so again, with this, you're just going to layer it on nice and thick over the pistachio pudding. And with the Cool Whip, it comes frozen. When you buy it from the store, it's in the frozen section. So you want to remember to put it into the fridge for, at least a couple hours, if not longer, before you're going to put it on the cake. Otherwise, it's going to be frozen and you're not going to be able to spread it out. So yeah, as I said, nice thick layer of Cool Whip, probably a good inch to 2 inches. And again, you could absolutely make homemade whipped cream if you prefer, and I have done that plenty of times and it's absolutely delicious. So you do not have to use Cool Whip. But then once you have the Cool Whip all spread out over the top, then you're going to add those crushed Butterfingers. And make sure you do a nice thick layer of Butterfingers, and then your cake will be done. So I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you might just give this recipe a try. Head on over to my blog, homesbutannie.com, and I will also have the recipe linked in the description box below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, share with someone else you think would enjoy it, and I will talk to you guys in the next video.